I'm Dhruti Yatri, you're watching TimesXP and welcome to the top US news today. A man living in the United States without legal permission has been arrested after sending a threatening letter saying that he'll harm Donald Trump. The man, 54-year-old Raymond Morales, wrote a letter and he said that he plans to harm Trump and then he will return to Mexico, his home country. The US immigration officials confirmed that this man is now in the detention in Wisconsin and he is facing deportation. According to the Department of Homeland Security, Morales has a long history of entering the US illegally. Between 1998 and 2005, he reportedly tried to cross the US border without permission 9 times. He also has a criminal background, including an arrest for a felony hit and run. The letter, which he sent on May 21st, was written in blue ink and criticized the US government's treatment of Mexican immigrants. He blamed Donald Trump for deporting his entire family and said that it was time for US president to get what he has coming to him. He ended the letter by saying that he would see Trump at one of his biggest rallies, suggesting that he intended to carry out a threat in public. US Immigration and Custom Enforcement arrested this man one day after receiving the letter. Officials acted quickly, saying that the threat was taken very seriously. ICE agents are responsible for enforcing immigration laws and often handle cases involving undocumented individuals who may pose as a threat to public safety. In a public statement, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said that Morales was now behind the bars thanks to ICE officers. She also pointed out that this threat comes less than a year after another attempt on Donald Trump at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania. That incident raised security concerns as well. Also, this latest case adds to that pressure on the law enforcement to protect political figures during a tense election season. The letter also mentioned Morales' anger about a recent deportation of his family members, which could be connected to ongoing immigration enforcement under Trump's policy. During his election campaign and his time in the office, Trump focused heavily on strict immigration rules, promising mass deportation and even using military support to remove undocumented migrants. Well, one of his controversial programs offered $1,000 and paid travel for the undocumented individuals who agreed to leave the US voluntarily, a policy that Morales may have referred to when he mentioned self-deporting in his letter. The Biden administration has since tried to roll back some of Trump's immigration strategies, but since Trump is back in the office, these things are happening again. Trump has promised that he would bring back tougher enforcement and expand the number of DHS officers by 20,000, and he's now fulfilling that promise. He also tried to use an old law enforcement, if you remember, from 1700 called the Alien Enemies Act to deport some groups like Venezuelan migrants accused of gang activities. However, the court stopped many of those moves. This latest incident has reignited discussions about the dangers of political threats in today's polarized climate. Secretary Noem even mentioned a recent controversy involving former FBI Director James, who posted a picture on social media that some people claimed was a secret call for violence against Trump. Though he denied all these accusations, deleted the post, it also added fuel to the concerns about public rioting and their safety. Now, this case shows how immigration, crime, and political violence can actually become deeply connected, specifically in a divided political environment. In a strong move to protect freedom of speech in the United States, Secretary of State Marco Rubio has introduced a new visa policy aimed at foreign nationals who try to control or silence American voices. This policy applies to those who attempt to censor Americans for what they post online, specifically on the US-based social media platforms, or who try to pressure American tech companies into following censorship rules from other countries. Well, Rubio made it very clear that the US will not allow any foreign government to influence what American citizens say or post, specifically when they are within the borders of the US. He called out the growing trend of foreign officials trying to punish US citizens or residents for online speech, sometimes even threatening them with legal action from overseas. This kind of interference, he said, crosses the line and violates the basic rights that are protected under the US Constitution. The announcement also pushes back against the increasing pressure from some countries that they want American tech companies like Facebook, X, and YouTube to follow strict global content rules. These countries often try to extend their censorship rules into the US, demanding that American companies take down or block content even when it's legal under the US law. Rubio emphasized that this kind of overreach will not be accepted and the new rule restrictions are part of a broader effort to push back. Interestingly, while Rubio did not mention any specific country by name, the policy is clearly aimed at authoritarian governments that are known for targeting critics who live abroad. In recent years, there has been several high-profile cases where foreign governments have tried to arrest or intimidate dissidents, journalists, or activists living in the US just because they spoke out online or in the media. This visa policy sends a very strong message. The United States will defend its values, specifically the right to free speech, even when threats come from the outside. Rubio called freedom of expression one of America's most important rights, one that has made the country a global symbol of liberty. He also warned that foreign governments trying to control speech within the US are crossing a dangerous line and that such actions will have consequences. Well, in today's digital world, information travels fast and across borders, but the right to speak freely, specifically in a country like the US, remains protected. This new visa rule is a clear step to ensure that no foreign power can silence American voices. In the United States, it is illegal to sell alcohol to anybody under the age of 21, and this law is strictly enforced in every single state. Recently, a serious incident occurred in New Hampshire involving a Gujarati man named Kantilal Patel. On April 26, 4 teenagers were out boating on Governor's Lake in Raymond, New Hampshire. Sadly, the small boat capsized, and one of the boys, who was only 15 years of age, drowned. The police found that all the boys were drunk at that time. During the investigation, it was discovered that Kanti Lal Patel, who likely works at the store called Karma Smoke and Beer Outlet in Raymond, had sold alcohol to the underage boy who drowned. Because selling alcohol to minors is a crime, Kanti Lal Patel was arrested and charged. The police also arrested 2 other people who had organized a party with alcohol for the teenagers. One of the surviving boys was also charged. Well, after their arrests, all 4 were released on bail but must appear in the court on July 14th. You know what? This particular case highlights a bigger issue for many immigrants living in the US without proper legal status. Many work in stores or gas stations where sometimes they sell alcohol or cigarettes to people under the age of 21 without knowing the law. People often use hidden cameras and undercover buyers to catch such sales. Usually, people caught in these type of cases pay a very small fine, about $100 to $200. However, in some states, specifically those with strict immigration enforcement, these violations can lead to serious consequences like detention by Immigration and Custom Enforcement and even deportation, even if the person has an ongoing asylum case. Let me give you another example. In January 2025 too, a young man from Gujarat was arrested in Georgia for illegally selling drugs while working in a smoke shop. He is still in the ICE custody and his deportation seems likely. This shows how important it is for immigrants, specifically those without full legal status, to understand the law and risks that are involved in selling age-restricted products like alcohol or tobacco in the US. Overall, this tragic incident is a reminder of serious consequences that can follow when laws about selling alcohol to minors are broken. Recently, a serious problem happened involving the US government and a man from Guatemala who was deported without following the legal process. This man, who is being called OCG for privacy, came to the United States seeking safety after facing attacks in his home country. He entered the US without permission in March 2024 and later asked for asylum, which means he wanted to stay in the US because he was afraid to go back to Guatemala. In February 2025, an immigration judge agreed that sending him back to Guatemala would put him in danger and ordered that he should not be removed from the United States. However, just 2 days after this important order, OCG was taken by the government and sent back to Mexico on a bus without the correct legal steps that were being followed. His lawyer explained that when he tried to return to the US again, he was treated very badly and held for ransom in Mexico. After hearing this, another judge said that the government could not send OCG anywhere except for Guatemala and had to follow all the proper rules. Despite this, OCG was sent back to Guatemala by the Mexican government and is now hiding there because he fears for his safety. After that, the US government told the court that OCG agreed to go back to Mexico, but OCG's own statement said that he was told about this at the last moment and he was not allowed to talk to his lawyer. Well, this case is not alone. Another judge has also criticized how the Trump administration has been handling deportations. They say that the government is deporting people too quickly without giving them a fair chance to explain their situation or follow the rules. For example, another man named Kilmil Abrego Garcia was sent back to El Salvador by mistake, and a judge ordered the US to bring him back. The Supreme Court agreed with this order, but he's still in prison in El Salvador, and the United States say that it depends on El Salvador to send him back. Smart, right? Well, such events show the challenges in how immigration law are enforced and highlights the importance of growing legal procedures to protect the rights of people seeking safety in the US. United States President Donald Trump's recent move to impose heavy import taxes known as tariffs have been declared illegal by the federal court in New York. Well, the decision was made by the US Court of International Trade, which ruled that Trump went beyond the powers that the law gives as a president. The judge said that only Congress, American legislative body, has the right to control and regulate trades with other countries, not the president alone. Well, this ruling focuses on tariffs Trump introduced on April 2nd, 2025. These taxes made imported goods more expensive, with basic 10% tax on almost everything and higher rates for some countries like China and members of the European Union. Trump's team claimed that these were needed to reduce trade imbalances, meaning that when the US buys more from a country than it sells to them, and to fix what they called unfair trade. To justify these taxes, Trump used a law called the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which was passed in 1977. This law gives the president certain powers to deal with real national emergencies like threats to the country's safety. But the court said that Trump's use of this law didn't fit that definition. The judge said that there were no real emergency and that he can't use the law just to make trade deals stronger or get other countries to negotiate. Interestingly, Trump's administration also tried to connect with the tariffs to a political issue in South Asia. They claim that the tariff taxes somehow helped stop a conflict between India and Pakistan after their war. However, both India and Pakistan said that the US had no role in reducing the tension. India even said that it handled the situation on its own. The judges found this particular argument really weak and irrelevant to the legality of the tariffs. The case was brought by the Liberty Justice Center along with 5 small American businesses and backed by 13 US states. They argued that the tariffs would raise prices for businesses and customers alike, hurt local industries, and were created without approval from the Congress. Well, this lawsuit was the first big legal pushback against Trump's broader tariff policies. There are still more similar cases that are waiting to be heard. The court not only struck down Trump's so-called Liberation Day tariff, but also cancelled other taxes placed on goods from China, Mexico, and Canada. Trump had said that those tariffs were meant to fight drug trafficking and illegal immigration, specifically related to fentanyl, a dangerous opioid drug. But the court said again that these taxes didn't actually respond to a clear emergency and were mostly being used for political leverage. The Trump administration strongly disagreed with the ruling, and in the meantime, officials immediately filed the appeal and said that the judges were overstepping their role. Stephen Miller, a top Trump aide, called the court's decision a judicial coup, and White House spokesperson Kush Desai said that unselected judges should not decide how the country handles emergencies. They insisted that Trump's actions were meant to protect American workers and businesses. However, financial markets reacted positively to court's decision. Stocks in Asia rose sharply, and US markets also showed signs of optimism. Many investors and businesses were worried about the uncertainty that Trump's sudden tariffs had caused, but now, with the court stepping in, they feel that there's more predictability in the US trade policy. Earlier in May, the Trump administration had already started to ease some of the tariffs, specifically with China, in an attempt to work towards a new trade deal. They had even agreed to pause some taxes for 90 days. Still, they warned that court's interference could ruin these talks. But the judge said that legality of Trump's actions were the main issue here, not the effect of the ongoing negotiations. Several officials, including New York Attorney General and Oregon Attorney General, praised the court's decision. They said that these tariffs would have made everyday products more expensive, and it can also cause inflation, lead to job losses. Now, in their view, the court protected both small businesses and working families. The three judges who ruled this particular case were not all from the same political background. They were appointed by Ronald Reagan, Barack Obama, and even Trump himself. This shows that the ruling was not political but based on constitutional law. The judges clearly stated that even during emergencies, a president's power must have limits and they cannot ignore Congress. Many Indian students dream of studying in the United States, but recent changes are making it harder to get student visas. Well, the US government has been really strict, delaying visa interviews and even checking students' social media accounts before any approval. This is specifically affecting students from states like Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, who make up about 13% of Indian students going to the US. Now, because of this uncertainty, education loan companies in India are getting worried. These lenders provide loans to many students planning to study abroad, but now they fear that some students may not be able to travel or find jobs afterwards. As a result, banks are tightening their rules and giving loans mostly to the students with strong academic record and admission to top universities. To understand the impact, consider this. Indian students contributed about $7.6 billion to the US economy in tuition and living expenses during 2019 and 2020. However, with new visa restrictions and fewer job opportunities, many students are unsure whether to continue their plans or not. Some are even deferring their studies or exploring other countries like Canada and the UK as alternatives. To improve their chances, students are advised to keep their documents ready, maintain a clean social media profile since it's being checked, stay informed about visa updates, and apply early to a very reputed universities. While the US remains a top destination for higher education, these new rules mean the process has become more challenging. Both students and lenders are now being more cautious. If you are planning to study abroad, it's very important to stay prepared and informed. Walmart, one of the world's largest retail companies, is planning to hire more people in both the United States and India. Well, this comes shortly after the company let go of about 1,500 employees globally in May 2025. The job cuts were part of Walmart's plan to simplify its operations, save some money, and make faster business decisions. Now, the company says that it will be opening up several hundred new job roles across both the countries. You know what's important is that even those who were recently laid off can actually apply for these new positions. According to Walmart's internal communication, this change is part of a larger effort to reshape the company's team so it can be better keep up with the changes in the world of business. Teams that were affected by the recent layoffs include those working in global technology, online order management, and advertisement. Now, these are key areas for Walmart, specifically as more customers shop online and expect fast, tech driven services. In the middle of all this, Walmart's leadership has faced criticism too, and that too from some political groups. Supporters of the Make India Great Again movement have accused Walmart's global CTO and EVP, Suresh Kumar, of favoring Indian H-1B visa holders over the American workers. H-1B visas, which allow skilled foreign professionals, specifically from India, to work in the US for several years. However, Walmart has not commented directly on these claims. Some reports suggested that the layoffs might be related to the US tariffs, taxes placed on imported goods, particularly from China. These tariffs were pushed during Donald Trump's presidency and made it even more expensive for companies like Walmart to buy certain products. But Walmart has strongly denied that tariffs had anything to do with the job cuts. Instead, the company says that this particular decision was based on its long-term business plan and priorities. Do you remember, in the past, Walmart had already warned that it may need to increase prices on some products, specifically those made in China, because of the rising import costs. The CEO explained in a company call that although Walmart tries to keep the prices very low, it cannot avoid passing on some of these extra costs to the customers because the company works on very thin profit margin. Now, this whole situation shows how complex it can be for global companies to manage operations during uncertain times. On one hand, Walmart wants to stay competitive by investing in technology and restructuring its workforce. And on the other hand, it has to deal with political pressure, global economic issues, and public expectations. That's it for today. Stay tuned to TimesXP for more such updates.